Hey guys, we're doing a So You Want to Build Muscle series. This is part 2. In the first video we talked about training. In this video we're going to talk about diet and eating, and this one is an area of confusion for a lot of lifters. I'm here with Andrew Pardue from Core Nutritionals. Core is one of the best supplement companies in the industry, so please check out their products at muscleandstrength.com. So Andrew, I'm going to let you start off in this video. We're talking about diet. How should a guy who's just starting out at the gym, what do they need to know about diet and nutrition?
The very first thing I would mention, and this is often unpopular with people because it sounds like a lot of work, but actually tracking how much you're eating, tracking your macros, your protein, your carbs, your fat every day. I think that's the biggest thing. I'll have people ask me what they should do to gain more muscle or how they should improve and that kind of thing. And the first thing I ask them is how many calories they're taking in. What's their macronutrients like, and 9.5 times out of 10
they won't know what they're doing. They
have no idea, and that's the biggest thing. If just as important as being consistent in the gym, you're going to have to be consistent in the kitchen as well. It's any of my clients that I prep for shows or in the off season or any time, the first thing we have them do is start tracking their macros, and the easiest way to do that, really, from what I have done in my experiences with clients, just for a couple of days, whenever you're starting to decide to, just for a couple of days, write down everything that you eat, and then you could look things up either on your phone using MyFitnessPal or My Preference, My Macros Plus are both good apps, or on the internet. Look up how many carbs and fat and protein are in each thing, kind of get a baseline average of what you're currently taking, and then you can go from there, which it depends on a lot of different things, your metabolism, your training, age, a lot of things, but going from there and from week to week, adjusting that as things go, according to your goals and that kind of thing, that's huge.
Just to touch on what Andrew said, I get a lot of nutrition questions, and a lot of I'm not building muscle, what's going on? I'm working hard in the gym, what's going on? And like Andrew said, the questions I've learned to lead with are how many grams of protein are you eating per day, and how many calories are you eating per day? Because I know if somebody knows what they're eating, that there's a good chance I can help them. Yeah. But like Andrew said, 9 times out of 10 people make the mistake of not knowing what they're eating, and they're either overeating bad foods and gaining weight, or they're undereating protein and undereating calories, and they're not anywhere where they think they are.
Yeah, and I would definitely say, if you've watched our first video in this series, we talked about increasing weight slowly in the weight room as far as adding 5 or 10 pounds to the bar. I think the same thing would go for adding calories. You say in the off season you're trying to gain muscle, adding calories slowly as well. I know for my clients, depending on a lot of different things, but on average, we might add something as small as 5 to 10 grams of carbs and maybe a gram or two of fat per week, to allow their metabolism to adjust, prevent any excess weight gain, and be consistent. Over time, that's going to make a big difference. I see a lot of people that want to try to gain muscle all of a sudden start eating twice as much food as they were, and just from a metabolism standpoint, that's going to have a lot of bad side effects as far as weight gain and a lot of different things like that.
I want to talk about that subject real quick, because one of the biggest mistakes I see in bulking, and I hesitate to use that term because I like to see long-term muscle building. One of the biggest mistakes people make when bulking or trying to build muscle is that they start out and say they're at 2,700 calories a day. They found out they're eating about 2,700 calories a day. They all of a sudden increase to some ridiculous level. They put on 30 pounds of weight in 3 months. You can only gain weight, even though beginners gain weight at a rapid pace, you can only gain so much muscle each month. So if you're going to gain weight too quickly, most of it's going to be fat.
Yeah, and I would definitely say, I think I've heard a number, which like you said, it depends on so many things, genetics, where you're currently at as far as your training experience, but something as small as 5 to 6 pounds of muscle a year is usually a pretty liberal amount of muscle gain in a year, and 5 or 6 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but it is when you actually get down and look at it. But for people to say, oh, I've gained 20 pounds in a couple months, that doesn't mean
95% of that's usually fat.
Right? Yeah, so that that doesn't impress me, and anyone that's got the experience will know that's not a good thing to do. Right. So yeah, that's definitely a big one. I have a lot of people do.
So just to recap, if you're just starting out, what I would like to see you do, and Andrew's probably on the same track here from what listening to him, is for a week, get a notebook, write down everything you eat, everything you drink. Don't discount what you're drinking. If you don't know what it is, put a handful size of pork chops or a handful size of almonds or whatever it is. Get a guesstimate and then go to a site like Calorie King or get an app or whatever. And you need to have some understanding of how many grams of protein, fats, carbs, whatever is in the food you are eating. You need to establish some sort of baseline to understand how many calories you're eating per day and at least how many grams of protein you're eating per day. Now, once you're at that level and you know where you're at, you can start to set up an eating plan. Now, with that said, there's a lot of debate on the internet of how many grams of protein a natural lifter needs. The minimum typically, they say 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. What do you recommend?
That's actually an interesting topic, and I won't go too in depth, but we happen to be connected with several people that have done research on protein intake and things like that. And the biggest thing people will say, and we've mentioned in another video of yours earlier, that over 40 grams is wasted and there's no reason for it, and it's just going to be added as fat or whatever the case is, and I would definitely say there's a lot more to that. As far as a protein synthesis standpoint, to spike that per meal, 40 is a good mark to have, but what people don't take into account is the effect of protein on preventing catabolism in the body. So you might not increase anabolism as far as protein synthesis and things like that, but additional protein can prevent additional breakdown in the body and still help you recover and gain more muscle. So, there's a lot more things to that. There was a research article done by a man named John Bossy that I happen to be really good friends with, and he did a lot of research on protein intake. And I'll try to give you that link, and we can put it on the description below, which that I think explains it a lot, and that's one thing I try to show people as well. And then an article on muscle and strength written by Cliff Wilson really explains protein intake well, and gives a really good perspective on it that a lot of people miss out on.
Now, one thing I get hammered with is I tend to tell people to eat more protein than the 1 pound per lean pound of body mass or whatever. And this is why I do it. Okay, there's a couple reasons. Number one, I tend to tell people 180 to 220 grams a day. And here's the reasoning. Number one, I've been doing this a long time. I've worked with top-level bodybuilders. I've worked with all the top-level bodybuilders. I've worked with all the top-level powerlifters. Not all, but a ton of them. And none of these guys try to find the minimal amount of protein they can eat per day to be successful. Trying to find the minimal you can do in the gym to be successful, the minimum you can do at the plate to be successful, usually isn't a recipe for success. And I'm not telling you to go to extremes, but I'm just telling you to build in a little bit of buffer to go above that minimum. The second thing is that protein is not the only macronutrient you're taking in. So if you only have 130 pounds of lean body mass right now, but your metabolism is requiring you to eat 3,800 calories per day, you're going to have to stuff your face with a lot of carbs. So sometimes it makes more sense to eat more protein just to balance out your diet a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say as far as my off season, I end up taking in a lot of all 3 macronutrients. But as far as adding protein, there's certain times in the off season where we'll add protein, and just from the thermic effect of protein, you're not going to gain weight as much as with a carb or a fat increase. So even from just adding in extra calories, sometimes we'll add in protein, depending on the situation. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of myths out there that they're just completely, I just don't even know how that's even a thing, really. Right. Depending, especially on the research that's been done here in the last 5 or 6 years, that alone says a lot. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more to it than people would believe. Now,
I want to talk about a subject that probably 75% of the guys who are just starting out worry about, and that's getting fat while beginning a muscle building diet. Now, I typically recommend guys start around 3,000 to 3,500 calories, and then with the understanding that the bulk of the guys listening to this are under the age of 25. That's just where the demographics are in this industry, so that's kind of who I'm speaking to here. When I tell people 3,000 to 3,500, mostly clean calories, 90% of them panic because they're like, oh my God, that's a lot of calories, I'm going to get fat. But when I meet guys like Andrew Pardue or other successful bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders, they're eating 3,000 to 3,500 calories per day, mostly clean foods, and guess what? They're not getting fat. So can you talk about that a little bit, Andrew?
I would definitely say the biggest thing with that is slowly getting to that point. You know, if you're taking in 2,000 right now and all of a sudden you jump to 3,500, you know, yeah, you might have some issues because your metabolism just won't adjust in time. But as far as, you know, the clients that I have and then the coaching that I'm under, you know, we, like I've said earlier in the video, we make sure that there's slow increases from week to week. Yeah, you know, I'm taking in around, I think, 3,700 calories really if you total it all up right now. But whenever I started with Cliff Wilson, who is my coach, I was taking in way under that. And over time, you know, I've had a 2-year off season since competing last. We've slowly worked our way up to where I'm at now. My metabolism adjusted. My metabolism is a lot stronger now. So, you know, I'm about to start contest prep. And, you know, I'm in a much better position now that I've slowly worked my way up and improved my metabolism.
Let's just round out with some talk about the overweight guys, like the guys who are maybe 240, 250, 230, you know, or even higher, who want to build muscle, but they look in the mirror, they're like, where do I begin? A lot of guys would be like, what's the point of me training hard in the gym if you know, what should I do? Should I bulk? Should I cut? I'm going to start off with my opinion on that, how these guys should start off, and then you can chime in. But my advice is that life is about more than lifting. If you look in the mirror and you're not satisfied with the way you look, it's probably causing you a little bit of depression. That needs to be addressed. For that reason, I advise losing the weight first. Secondly, health. If you're overweight, and you know, you're over 230, 240, 250, you're carrying around that extra weight, you need to get it off for health reasons. So my advice is to focus on the things you can control. Get your diet in check, get mostly the clean foods. You still got to go to the gym and work hard, regardless if you're losing fat or building, you know, even if you aren't building muscle.
Yeah. I would definitely say with people that I've had come to me and start coaching under me, you know, especially like people that are overweight, we're going to start an off season for a couple years before we look to competing. Just by getting their diet under control, having them consistently tracking their macros, hitting certain numbers, just that in the first several weeks we'll usually see some weight loss just because their metabolisms are finally kind of getting in whack. So, you know, that's one thing I've noticed almost every time that I have someone, if they're not tracking their stuff, once we get a good macronutrient distribution going, you know, they'll initially see some weight loss, and then almost every time, that's exactly what I'll do, is I'll start at least a mini cut to try to get their weight down a little bit, because depending on the situation, I can start increasing their calories to improve their metabolism, but if they're already overweight, you know, we're not going to have a lot of time to work with before they like you say, get too far up. So we definitely will first get them on a certain amount of macronutrients so I can track that and their metabolism can kind of get back adjusted. Especially we'll have a lot of people that are taking in like 30 or 40 grams of protein a day, but their fat will be over 100. So just redistributing that will make a big difference. And then, yeah, we definitely almost always will mini cut them first to try to get their weight down, because, you know, especially for me coaching bodybuilders, we want to look good. We don't, you know, we don't want to be really, you know, fat or anything like that. We want to be good.
And most people want to look good.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's one of the main reasons we get into it. So
even when I was powerlifting, I wanted to look good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to look good. So, you know, we'll definitely do a little mini cut first. But even then, especially if you're just starting, you know, you still have some potential to gain some muscle, especially if you're, like I said, a new person to the gym. But even then, weightlifting is just as important when you're cutting as it is when you're growing.
So you can hold that muscle. Because if you don't work hard in the gym, when you're cutting fat, you're going to what? Increase your chance that you're going to lose muscle.
All kinds of gains.
So just to recap, guys, this video, if you're just starting out and you want to approach your diet, the best thing you can do is get yourself a notebook and for a week, write down everything you eat and drink. If you don't know how to quantify it, just, you know, ballpark, it was a fistful size or a half a plate. And then spend some time on a Saturday and Sunday trying to figure out how many calories, grams of protein, fat, and carbs are in each food. Find out an average amount of calories, proteins, fats, and carbs you just ate for the previous week, and that will give you a good baseline, a good starting point. From there, you can make adjustments, get your protein at least above 150 grams per day, maybe 180 to 200, and then find out where your calories are at, and then you can, if you feel like you need to eat more, you can slowly start to creep those calories up. If you are overweight, you can slowly start to creep those calories down.
And one final note I would make, I have a lot of people saying things as far as, oh, that has to take forever. How do you do that every day? It takes so much time to track. But, it really doesn't. One app I'll plug is My Macros Plus. It's an app developed by Jason Lowy, which is a good friend of mine. And, using that, I'm in college full-time, have my own training, coach clients, travel all the time for core, and I can track my food every day, and it doesn't hold me back, and it doesn't take up a lot of time. So, there's a lot of good apps out there on your phone, or, a notebook even. Once you get used to it and figure out some of the main staples, how many carbs and things like that are in those, it's really, it doesn't take that much time, and it's definitely worth the time that it does take.
All right, guys, we're going to do a video, part 3 of this series. We're going to talk about beginner supplementation. So, guys, appreciate you watching. Have a good day.